Well, good morning. It is now September the 1st, 2025, and straight from the Highly Caffeinated studio. That's right, according to Willie B Podcast. It's your host right here, yours truly in person. I had an interesting idea come to me via a friend a couple weeks ago. And I pondered and pondered on it, and I really liked it. And her idea was, it was Kelly out of Dallas, and she said, you should do a travel versus, a travel truth versus myth podcast. And I said, that would be a great segment to fill in some of the gap each week. And so I thought, there's a lot of different travel myths and truths out there. And sometimes, if you're not a seasoned traveler, it's hard to distinguish which one is truth and which one is a myth. And so I've kind of been having some thoughts and ideas on this, and I really kind of took off and run with it. Well, the funny part is the first one that I come up with that is one of my pet peeves, if you will. I guess I really can't say pet peeve, but it is one that has the landscape of air travel has changed dramatically, especially if we say over the last, I don't know, let's call it 15 years, 20 years. It's changed a lot just in the last 10. But let's think about this. So I was going to do a travel versus myth just on airline travel. But the thing is, it actually turned out to be almost an entire podcast on its own. Here's why. I, as you know, have become where I'm driving to our destinations more and more. Now, why is that? Is it that I'm just a true road warrior and I like the dotted lines on the highway, that I like to drive in traffic? I don't think any of these things are true. But my hope is that by the time this podcast is done, you can at least see my side in why I prefer traveling by car sometimes now versus airlines. And there's some pros and cons on both sides. I'll give you a couple real quick. If I'm going to go visit friends and family in Texas, I don't want to drive that. It is 18 hours plus from North Carolina. And it's just an immense distance. I can be there faster on a plane. If I want to go to Vegas or somewhere across the country, same thing. I don't want to drive that. But having the luxury of being on the East Coast, there are a lot of destinations that are basically at my fingertips, if you will. So I have learned that it's cheaper and better to drive versus fly. And I'm going to give you some, for instances, I'm going to give you some facts. I'm going to give you, because those of you who's like, okay, give me some numbers, give me some facts, back this up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that for you. So if you Google some stats, just off of, like, what's the average flight delay? I thought this one was comical. And anybody that has flown in the last 60 days, 30 days, anybody that's traveled this by air this last week, you're going to find this humorous. According to Google, the average flight delay is 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah, okay. I'm not buying that one. I'm sorry. Is every flight delayed? No. But more and more flights are being delayed and canceled. And it really disrupts people's lives sometimes, the way travel can be diverted that way. Here's a for instance. You've worked all year long. You get, let's say, let's because I used to have this. I used to have 2 weeks of vacation a year. Now, I didn't always travel both of those weeks, but usually 1 week out of the year, I was going to take a trip. So I've saved my money all year long, planned out this trip, and now my flight's delayed. Now my flight is canceled, or etc. That's costing me valuable time on that 1 week of vacation that I've waited on all year long. To me, that's unacceptable, especially for someone who loves to travel as much as I do. So, and every airline is different. Every airline has some airlines are better than others. But if you really want to know, if you want to look for what's the big corporate word these days, the buzzword, let's get to the root cause. Okay, so I'm going to get to the root cause for you. I checked this out just this afternoon because I wanted to have some numbers to throw at you. Did you know that the average flight delay is that the 20% of the average flights are delayed? 20%. Let that number sink in. Start thinking that in the numbers of how many flights there are daily across the U.S., and now figure that 20% out of that. That is a huge number, my friends. But here is my take on air travel versus car. So I'm going to give you some food for thought, and then I'm going to give you some pros and cons, because I want to give you both sides. I want you to have all the facts to weigh it in. Is Will full of bacon, or does he know what he's talking about? Well, we already know I'm full of bacon and other things as well. So I've been told. So I used National Car Rental, and I checked on National Car Rental this afternoon to rent a car this coming Friday in the morning to drive to Florida, Orlando, from Raleigh, Durham. And my cost for the car, mid-size car, was $163. Renting on Friday morning, returning on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. $163, taxes and all. I'm going to give you $200 to add to that for gas. That gives you the gas down there, the gas back, and some gas while you're there. The miles are unlimited, so you're not charged for mileage. So we're talking $360 for the car and the fuel. That gets me down there and back. I went on Southwest Airlines. I looked up a flight to leave this Friday morning and come back Sunday midday. It was the best flight they had that was nonstop. Are you sitting down for this figure? This is just from North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham Airport to Orlando this coming Friday, which would be the 5th of September, coming back on the 7th. $1,293. My friends, that is almost $1,000 more. Now, there's some variables. Let's look at them. If you rent a car today, and I want to go pick it up tomorrow, or even today, same day, the price doesn't really fluctuate that much. From experience, it does not fluctuate that much if I want to rent it tomorrow or I want to rent it next month. But guess what? On an airline, that makes a huge difference. Oh, you want to travel next week? Oh, yeah, well, you should have planned better than that, buddy. We're going to charge you double. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against airlines because there's still a lot of places in the U.S. that I'm going to fly to, I'm not going to drive to. So I want to make sure that we're clear that I'm not against flying. What I'm trying to point out is sometimes, and I'm going to tell you this, and you can take it for what it's worth, but this is my own personal heartfelt thought. The journey on the ground holds more memories than flying through the clouds. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think some of you know what I mean. For instance, if I'm going to fly, go take that flight to Florida this weekend, and I'm going to be stuck in the airport for either a lunch, dinner, or both. Have you eaten airport food lately? As a foodie, it doesn't get me excited. But on the pro side, if I'm driving, the amount of locally owned restaurants that I'm going to drive past, and I just have an immense selection that I can stop and enjoy a meal from a locally owned restaurant. Yeah, that's going to be way better than that airport food. All right, here's some more pros and cons. I get my rental car. I can start on my trip right then. Just leave right the rental car lot and head out on my trip. The airport, on the other hand, now, if it's a domestic flight, we're not going to talk international because we'd have to fly that anyway. But on a domestic flight, the recommendation is to get to the airport 2 hours early. That's right. Say it with me. 2 hours early. The average person, statistically, lives anywhere from 30 to 47 minutes from the airport or their nearest airport to them. So you're going to drive a half hour from your home to the airport. You got to park. You got to pay to park while you're gone. So if you're gone 3 or 4 days, you're paying that parking. Then, on top of that, you're going to have to make sure that you don't take anything in your luggage that, is taboo. Make sure you don't take anything on the plane that's taboo, anything over 2 ounces. The seats, so I'm going to say this one, and this one's throwing myself under the bus. I don't care. I do it all the time. But to the airline seats, like I almost have to have, even before I've gained the weight that I've gained in the last year, I've never fit comfortably in the middle seat of an airplane. And I really don't think the average human does either. I either have to have a window seat or an aisle seat so that I can, let's just say, spill out of my seat in either direction so that I'm not, let's call it borrowing out of the center seat. So, there's that. So it's not comfortable for me. I have broad shoulders, and it just does not. I just do not fit comfortably in that middle seat. It's just not made for me. So I'm going to cram myself in this middle seat. So I've had to leave the house. That's 30 minutes. 2 hours early at the airport. Now we're at 2.5 hours, and I'm not even on the plane yet. When I land at my destination, it's at least an hour. And if you don't believe me, the next time you fly, set your watch the minute the wheels on the plane touch the ground. You're looking at a solid hour, my friend, to taxi to the gate, deplane, get your luggage, because, if your luggage is like mine, it's going to be the last one on the belt. And then, you're going to love this one, you've got to go head to the rental car counter to get your rental car. I can tell you I've spent anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour and a half waiting to get a rental car. And hopefully that they have it. Now, so if you start adding up that time, as much as we travel to Gainesville which is why I started driving down there. I can be in Gainesville faster by car than you can by airplane. And I know you're throwing things right now saying you have lost your mind. No, let's go back and let's do the time. So, we had 2.5 hours pre-trip, an hour. So that's 3.5 hours now. You with me? 2.5 hours pre-trip, 1 hour post-trip. That's 4.5 hours. I'm sorry. Three and a half hours. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep these stats correct. 3.5 hours invested just in, I don't know what you call it. It is an 8-hour drive, no stops, from North Carolina, Raleigh, or Raleigh, North Carolina, to Orlando, Florida. That's 11.5 hours, my friend. That is 11.5 hours. My wife has colleagues that fly to Gainesville. We, 9 times out of 10, beat them down there. Because here's another little interest. Remember I was talking about the delayed flights? There are certain airports, especially if you have to change planes. Now, if you can get a direct flight, that really helps out on flight delays. Because a lot of times where you get into flight delays is when you have to change planes. Because your next plane hasn't gotten there yet. How many times have you seen that? You're at the gate and you're on time, but your plane is nowhere to be seen. And that's what I'm talking about. And that happens in the Charlotte airport a lot, especially on that Gainesville flight. So 99 times out of 100, I will beat you to Florida, to Gainesville, before you can fly down there. So, I mean, I've tested it out enough times that I can comfortably sit here behind this mic and tell you. But here's the other thing, folks. Remember what I was talking about the journey. You know, what happened to the times when we traveled as families, and there was singing in the car, there were games. Remember the old, I know I'm not going to remember some of the names, but remember the bug game or the license plate game? I know some of you folks remember these things, and that's what I'm talking about. The memories you can, when you take a vacation, it's about making the memories. Well, guess what, friends? The memories start when you get in the car and start the trip. I don't ever remember making very many memories in an airplane. You're flying above the memories. The only thing that I can ever, there's two. I want to give you two. There are 2 times that I have traveled by air that have been memorable. 2. And one is when you fly over the Caribbean and you're looking out the window and the water goes from that murky ocean to that crystal clear blue water. That is breathtaking. That is memorable. When I see that, it lets me know that I have left everything behind, including work. So that's what I'm talking about. The other one, I enjoy flying over the Grand Canyon. I don't know why. It's my thing, I guess. I just think it's the coolest thing when you fly over the Grand Canyon. But that's what I'm talking about, is making the memories. The memories are being made in the journey itself. Now, if you think that I have completely lost all touch of reality, well, let me just clue you on one more thing. I've told you guys about the upcoming trip, which is literally 24 days away. And when we're going to Niagara and New York and Boston and all this stuff, I canceled my flight. Yeah, yes, I know. You just looked at your speaker like, you did what? So even our friends that are traveling with us were like, you did what? So I canceled our flights. So we are going to drive to New York, which is only about a 9-hour drive. And then we're going to make the entire trip where we drive from New York to Niagara and Montreal to Boston. And then when we arrive to Boston and we finish our trip up, we're going to take them to the airport so they can fly back to Dallas. And then we're going to drive home from Boston. And it's about a 13 and a half hour drive from Boston. So it's going to be almost like driving back from Texas by the time you throw in a few stops. On that one, I did have to get, because I know after having driven as much as we're going to drive for 10 days, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that all in one day. So I've found a decent hotel in a very unique area. Give me something else to look at and talk about, and maybe another good restaurant to check out. But that way we'll split the drive up about 7 hours one day and 7 hours the next. Come on home. That way maybe I won't be too exhausted when I go back to work the next day. But that's the thing, folks, is make your memories be part of the travel. Make your travel be part of the memories. Now, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm going to keep saying this because I don't want you to get lost in the mud and say, okay, hold on, dude. This destination is 15 hours away. No, that's if you want to drive it, by all means, think about all the memories you'll make in between there. But you got to understand, look at your destination, look at your origination, where you live or where you're starting from, and do the math. That's part of planning a trip. That's the fun part. It's like, okay, well, what if I drive it and do all the math? Well, what if I fly and do all the math? Is there a train? Is there a boat? Is there, there are so many different modes of transportation. Check them all out. Make the travel part of your memory and make your memories part of the travel, because that is where you're going to create some memories that are going to last a lifetime. Now, there are some more pros and cons of flying versus driving, and I want to make sure I give you everything. So with the airlines, you got delays and cancellation. We're not even going to talk about lost luggage. And like I said, you get there, you still have to rent a car. So literally, if I took that trip this Friday, that fake trip that I did the pricing on, and I fly to Orlando for that $1,293, I'm going to be down there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I still got to have a rental car. Guess what it's going to cost me? That same $163. So I really haven't saved anything. I haven't saved time. I haven't saved money. All I've done is cram myself into the middle seat and been uncomfortable for a few hours. So, that's what I say. Just look at the pros and cons of all sides of your travel, of all sides of your trip. Plan out your vacation as much as you can and still leave. But what I'm about to say doesn't really matter to some people, but leave some spontaneity in there. You don't want to plan every single thing down to the minute, because then that becomes a schedule and it becomes stressful. Not for the kids, but especially for the adults, because we deal with schedules at work, at home, in our lives. So don't make it a schedule, but plan it out so that you get the most out of that fruit, which is your vacation. You worked all year to grow that fruit, which is your vacation. Squeeze that thing for all it's worth and get every drop of enjoyment that you can out of it. Now, driving. Are there some cons with driving? Because I've given you all the pros, but I'm going to give you the cons for driving as well. So, of course, unless you just like going down the blacktop and staring at the white lines going by at 50 miles an hour, there's that. Some people don't like to drive. I, for one, absolutely love to drive. But you do have car breakdowns. you do have speeding tickets. Luckily, I haven't had any of those lately that I know about anyway. Who knows if something pops in the mail on me, and of course, then you have the chance of an accident, right? So, the decision to drive is a big one. Just make sure you do all of your homework and figure it out. Which is best for you, and which is best for you and your family. But, for me, it just depends on the destination and how much time I have. Because, when you're going to drive, sometimes you could lose some time. If it takes a little longer to drive somewhere, you could lose some time in the drive time. That's my disclaimer, is the driving doesn't work on all trips, but, for some it does, and it makes sense to drive. You want to spend $1,300 and be squished in a middle seat, or you want a nice seat and drive down there at your leisure and still be there before the plane does. So just plan it out. Moving forward, we will have a small couple-minute segment on each podcast that we look at travel myths versus truths, because there's a lot of them out there. I also want to start dropping some of the discounts that I've uncovered throughout my travels that a lot of people don't know about. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you this one. And you're going to think again, by the time this podcast, I think you're going to think I've lost my mind. But I promise you, I still have some of it. My mind, that is. One of my ways, especially if I'm planning a trip to the Caribbean, I will pick out 3 to 4 resorts. And I will go on there and I'll put in the dates, put in all of my information. I'll put in the days, everything, just like I am right at checkout. But I'm not going to click out. I'm not going to click that checkout button. No. I'm just going to close that browser and let it be. And I'm going to do that on 3 or 4 resorts. Now, why would I do that? Well, they get your email address. And guess what? In a couple of days, sometimes faster, you'll get an email saying, hey, you forgot to check out on your trip. You were almost done, and you just got to click that button, because they see that. And you just ignore it. Let it go for a few more days. Then you'll get an email, not all the time, but it does happen a lot. You'll get an email saying, hey, if you want to go ahead and take advantage of your trip today, we'll offer you a 20% discount. Boom, 20%. Now, if I'm not in a hurry to book, I can take that, or I'll just let them sit and sweat it out and see if they'll give me more. But I'll watch the expiration date on that 20%, because 20% on a $2,000 vacation, hello, that's $400. I mean, that's an excursion, or that's an extra sightsee, or that's an extra, some whatever, souvenirs, you name it. But that's one of my travel secrets. I challenge you just to try it, just for fun, just to see if you get the emails. I'd be interested in hearing how it goes for you. You know my email address, all of them, at culinaryhighway. So I'm going to try this one more time. I've made the entire podcast with no word salads, and now right here at the end, we're going to have a word salad. I know my email addresses. You can go to accordingtowillieb.com, or you can go to accordingtowillieb@gmail.com, culinaryhighway@gmail.com. It doesn't matter. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, we're on all of them. I spend so much time on social media now, I feel like I'm a teenager. Well, that is until I wake up in the morning and I'm stiff, I can't move. But other than that, I feel like a teenager. So just let me have that, will you? I got one last thing for you, and that is do not forget to caffeinate and conquer. And I will see you right here, right next week, in this same exact spot behind this big old mic with some more stuff to talk about and probably have some more food to talk about too. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.